Thank you, Mr. Mondale. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The title of my talk today is Can We Talk? Seeking Common Ground in Fighting Terrorism. Now, when I came up with that name for the talk, I ran it by my wife, who said, I don't get it. What do you mean, this can we talk? And I said, well, it's kind of a double thing. It's sort of an allusion to Joan Rivers, who would say, can we talk all the time? And she said, you know, if you tell them that, you will sound like a dope. So I'm not going to tell you that. Instead, what I want to talk to you about is the reason I chose the title, and that is, this is a topic, counterterrorism, that I'm optimistic about, especially with the arrival of a new administration, that we have an opportunity in American life to actually have a serious conversation about some of the most difficult aspects of law and counterterrorism. And I think that thoughtful discussion is wildly overdue. I think what we normally see in Washington, and we've seen in Washington since September the 11th, is a whole lot of bumper stickering. I think instead what we see is people talking past each other and trying to reduce complex issues to slogans that they can then use to demonize the people who don't agree with them. I think that people since September 11th have more often engaged in caricature drawing than in real discussion about some of these issues. And let me talk about both sides of the aisle. On the right side of the aisle, I have seen people in and out of government impugning the backbone, the guts, the patriotism, for heaven's sakes, of people who are critical of counterterrorism measures that the government has taken. And from the left side of the aisle, I've seen people both in and out of government questioning not just the wisdom, but the sanity, frankly, and the motives of people on the other side of the aisle who disagree with them on counterterrorism measures and whose steps they think are too aggressive. I found this enormously frustrating. In fact, you mentioned John Ashcroft. Until the hospital story was told, there were people in and out of government, a lot of them out of government, who viewed John Ashcroft as positively demonic. And I now think that with the construction of a statue in his likeness in the ACLU lobby in New York, that has changed. I saw this bumper stickering especially in the context of a debate that we had about 3 years ago over renewing the Patriot Act. And some of you may have participated in that debate. More than a debate, though, especially in Washington, it was people shouting past each other about an extraordinarily complicated piece of legislation, some of which was fairly ordinary and not that big a deal, some of which was a very big deal and viewed by a lot of us who were using those tools in counterterrorism to be very important. It was during that discussion that I kept saying to my friends and colleagues, we have to find a space in American life to discuss these issues, and we have to find it before there is another terrorist attack in the United States. Many people, and I'm among them, believe that there will be another terrorist attack in the United States. I think we're very fortunate that it didn't happen in the last 7 years. I think given the nature of our country and the nature of the threat we face, it is inevitable. I think that now is the only opportunity for us to have some measure of reflection and distance on issues like detention and interrogation and surveillance, and that there will be no opportunity for measured reflection in the wake of another attack. I think that it is important to start that discussion, and maybe the beginning of a new administration offers a rare opportunity to start it by thinking about where is the common ground. Is there common ground on counterterrorism issues, some of the most controversial between left and right? And my proposition for you today is there's a whole lot more than people realize, or maybe those who realize are unwilling to acknowledge. So let me take some shots at both sides, if I could, in suggesting to you that there is ample common ground on counterterrorism issues. And at the outset, let me say that I'm struck by how folks on the left and the right appear oblivious to the fact that their core concerns when it comes to counterterrorism are two heads of the same coin. And here's what I mean by that. The last time I checked, people on the right said they were people who were concerned about the size of government, the power of government, and its impact on our lives. That they were people who questioned the efficiency of government and its ability to do anything, and were deeply suspicious of it overall. That's what I thought people on the right held as a core value. And on the left, in my experience, folks say, what I care about is, among many other things, but one of the things I care about is abuse of police powers, and government's role in the lives of an individual and infringement upon fundamental liberties. When it comes to counterterrorism, are they not talking about the same thing? Are they not talking about two heads of the same coin that, however couched, aren't both poles, and very few people are at the poles, but both sides of our ideological spectrum, concerned about what powers government has and how government uses those powers? I think the answer is yes. I think the basic premise is the same. And I think we should all approach the expansion of government authorities in all areas, but I'm talking now about government authorities in counterterrorism, criminal enforcement, and intelligence. Focus on the expansion of those powers, the use of those powers, and the general expansion of the size of that part of our government with skepticism. I think both left and right in doing that would be consistent with their core values. That doesn't mean we don't need powers like that, but that means we need to scrub each one to say, why do we need it? What does it involve? And why is it consistent with the things I believe? Now, I come from the right side of the spectrum, so let me start by asking my own, did we somehow lose that skepticism of government power over the last 8 years? Or is it that we only worry about government power when we're not running the government? Or is it that we only worry about government power when it's not national security or terrorism that we're focused on? I hope not. I hope that the core value of being skeptical about government power remains no matter who is in charge and does not vary depending upon where you sit. The questions and the challenges from the left on government power when I was in government, and a lot of folks on the left side of the spectrum were out of government, are legitimate and important. And even when I don't agree with them, I need to hear them and to try to meet them in a respectful and dignified way. Because sometimes people with a different view than you are right, and you're wrong, as shocking as that may be to everyone within the sound of my voice. I think folks on the right need to see that common ground and need to respect the fact that our fellow citizens should be in the arena questioning government at every turn. When it comes to taxation or environmental regulation or health insurance, there may be very little common ground between left and right. But when it comes to the enforcement power of government, both in theory and how government uses that, I hope that those of us who come from the right side of the spectrum may understand that we're coming from the same place and saying the same thing. And maybe that baseline understanding will foster a better discussion. So let me suggest some other common ground. Another piece of common ground that, boy, I hope is obvious is that Republicans and Democrats care passionately and equally, in my experience, about protecting the American people.